right, so why are we here? For the last couple of years I've been planning to go to Oshkosh. Unfortunately life happened and I didn't make it. But every time I put a plan in place I thought, how do I get there, where do I stay, what do I do, what do I look for? And I thought, well, I know enough people here that I can ask that question, but then I thought, well, maybe other people might want to know the answers to those questions as well if they're thinking of going in the future. So PAC kindly put this on tonight so that we can record it ideally. So if you don't want your face recorded, let me know and we'll and we'll try and edit it out and see how that goes. So that's why we're here tonight. So what I've done is I've grabbed some people who have been to Oshkosh with a variety of experiences. We'll start with Gordon. So we're going to ask him four questions each. And we're going to run through the panel. Then if you have any questions about this particular topic, we'll take questions from the floor, but we'll try and keep it nice and fluid. We don't want to be here all night and we're going to be sick of listening to me talk. All right, fantastic. So Gordon, just a quick summary. This was your first trip to Oshkosh?
Yes, it was.
And how did you get there?
So I went to Oshkosh first time this year, a trip 16 hours on a Qantas flight from Melbourne to Dallas, where I encountered Phil and Ian Carney and who else we had, Phil? On that flight? Not on that flight, or did we? No. Tim. It's amazing who you meet in airports in the middle of America. And then from Dallas to Chicago, met Jack Beavers in Chicago and drove up to Oshkosh. And if I've got an opportunity to talk about flights, one thing I'll say, it was a Qantas flight, but booked through American Airlines because it was $2,000 cheaper than exactly the same flight on the Qantas website.
Fantastic, thank you. We go really straight on to Brent. So Brent, how many times have you been to Oshkosh?
3 times. I went in 2010 and then I went last year and then this year.
And how did you get there apart from in a plane?
So we went, I took my 12-year-old boy with me. We went, it was a terrible flight, but it was cheap. It was $1,600 and we went to Sydney and I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning at the airport. So it was very early. Went to Sydney and then we only had an hour and a half, that was a bit tight. And then we went to LA and then straight through to Chicago. So that took 27 hours or something. It was a long way. Not ideal. Not ideal. Yeah.
Zoe?
Okay, so yeah, it was my first time at Oshkosh. It was pretty overwhelming, and yeah, went with my dad, Tony. I think we flew American Airlines and we stopped in San Francisco, didn't we, Dad? And then went to Chicago. Yeah, hired a car and drove up from there. I'd probably say pick another airline. We had a pretty bad experience on the way back with it, lots of cancellations and stuff.
That was going to be a question, but yes, so from a timing point of view, allow extra time?
We allowed extra time at the end of the show, and I think if I went again, I would allow extra time before the show, get there a few days earlier, just get over your jet lag and all that sort of stuff, yeah.
Fantastic, excellent. Graham?
Hi.
You've been a few times.
I've been a few times. I've been volunteering since 2018 every year, and each year I guess I normally go Melbourne to Los Angeles and then spend a day or two there and then try and get as close as I can. And in 2018 met some people there, so I fly to Madison from Los Angeles and then we drive up from there. But I think there's a myriad of ways of getting there, and I guess when you get to Chicago, what I found is that your options are bus or car, and a car, for those that have done it, know that that's not cheap, but the bus is awkward. It's 2 buses typically from Chicago up to Oshkosh. But what I discovered this year was that there's an airport called Appleton, very close to Oshkosh, if you can organise flights through there, which is about a $9 bus ride from Appleton down to Oshkosh. So there's a multitude of ways of getting there. With a bit of research, you can reduce your costs, but it's a matter of what flexibility you want when you get there. A car's obviously nice, but it's not the cheapest either. So.
Well, I suppose that's part of the reason Appleton. I don't know if anyone else had heard of landing at Appleton and driving there, but it's just a nice one to put in the back of the mind. Thank you.
Yep.
Darren, how many times have you been in?
Yeah, this was my 22nd trip to Oshkosh. I've been very, very fortunate that I've got some people over there that seem to have adopted the crazy Australian. They're all locals, they've all been brought up, they've all live in the area. So I went Melbourne to Brisbane, Brisbane to Vancouver, Vancouver into Chicago, and then from Chicago up to Green Bay, where my family picked me up from there. Flying with Air Canada was brilliant. They co-partnered with Virgin, so there was no problems with that. Entry into the United States is actually through Vancouver, so you clear US customs in Vancouver, and doing that was an absolute dream. Last year when we went, we got stuck in Los Angeles because of that Microsoft upload issue when the computers all crashed, and United just basically shut the curtain, shut the door, and just left tens, hundreds of thousands of people stranded with no help. We had to organise our own accommodation. It was horrific. So for me, I never want to go near LA ever again. It's a shithole. The people there are horrible.
What do you really think?
They're nasty. It's just, you know, it's just really the scourge of the earth. San Fran is really nice, but I absolutely despise Los Angeles. So that's the way I went.
We just ruined our American YouTube audience, you know that.
I'm sure that they'll probably agree with me. You know, Los Angeles is not a really nice place.
So flying to Canada, does that add much to the trip time? Going
No,
up?
not really. No, it was still about the same travel time as what I'd normally do anyway, because I normally get delayed. And this year, the Ministry of War and Finance booked my tickets. I've always used an agent in the past, and normally what she would do is that she would have me booked on a flight. So as I'm landing in Los Angeles, the other flight's already departing, and it was like, it made no sense. And she said, oh look, they always overbook flights. This time, I allowed a couple of hours between each flight, and it just worked out so much easier and simpler. And as I said, the Canadian, you know, crew were just absolutely magnificent. Couldn't speak highly enough.
Fantastic. All right, next question. And I'm going to reverse the order this time. While in Oshkosh, where did you stay this time, and perhaps touch on where you've stayed before?
So I've been camping at EAA. There's Camp Scholler, which is the campground on the EAA grounds, which is owned and operated by the EAA. And around that area, there's some private property. So we stay in a campsite there. It's glamping. I've got mates over there that'll tow in a 40-foot, you know, motorhome, and there's about 12. There was 14 of us this year, so we form like a big square circle. And you know, each families will take it in turns to cook. The experience of camping there is, you can't comprehend what goes on at night time. You have so many unique personalities. They're all pilots, they're all aviators, so there's that mix. But you know, one area when you're in Camp Scholler, you always go to the South Africans. Because they, you know, I think they had like 400 of them there from South Africa, and not all of them are there for Oshkosh. They bring their own people to support the campsite. They put on a braai, which is their barbecue, and they just welcome everyone. And it's like that wherever you go. We ended up in there and we saw these guys sitting on a double-decker bus, and it worked out that they were helicopter guys. And next thing you know, we're in there, and you know, the next day you wake up and like, where have I been, and got I drunk, and it's just incredibly universal, because we're all there for the same thing.
Fantastic. Great. So I know you've been a few times.
Yeah, done all of it, from houses to the university to camping. And I think, like Darren says, the experiences are completely different. In the campground is probably the best experience, but it's not an easy thing to do if you're only going once. Everyone lines up for a camp spot and they're gone within about a fortnight. So, but if you can manage it, if you've got the time and the energy to do it, you can pre-book sites. You can pre-book campers, so you can have your own camper there. There's companies that'll put the camper there. If you can arrange 3 or 4 people together, it's a fantastic way to do it, because as Darren says, the nightlife and what you experience in the campgrounds after the show is probably as good as the show itself in many respects. But I guess in volunteering, which is I guess if you volunteer for the EAA and you do that for, if I was to volunteer this year for 40 hours, I would qualify for a free campsite. I don't get a motorhome with it, but I could put my tent on it. So there's 5,000 volunteers, and volunteering means that you get to do that. You get a low cost accommodation for the event, and you get to experience the nighttime functions and activities around the campground.
We'll get on to activities next.
I think the three options, as I said, are a house, and if you can get a group together, then that can be quite good. They're hard to get, especially if you want to stay near the show. There's the hotels, which are almost impossible because all the exhibitors have got those already now for next year, anywhere close. And so the university usually is the fallback, and the university is actually a fantastic experience. There's food, there's the transport, it's the bus transport, it's so easy. If you were going for the first time, that would be my recommendation, is the university. That doesn't stop you getting there at night time. You can hang around the show, and I guess the buses sorry, I'll talk about that, but the buses run till late at night. So you can still experience it, but that's where you're living, so you need to get back there every night. But that's probably the best way to go if you're a first-time Oshkosher.
So you had a head start, though, because Dad's been there a few times.
Yeah.
So I suppose we'll start with this question. Where did you guys stay?
So we stayed in the uni. Dad and Jack and Gordon booked the uni. It was really comfortable. We just shared a room. Dad didn't snore too much, so okay. And yeah, all the food. They've got what would you call it? What do they call it? Over
It's a
there?
cafeteria.
Yeah, like a cafeteria. Yeah.
Breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Yeah, breakfast, lunch and dinner. And the buses run probably every 5 minutes. It was a couple of 100 metres walk to the bus. And the bus goes straight to the front gates of Oshkosh, which is closer than where you'd park your car. So yeah, it was pretty convenient and very comfortable. I'd definitely do that again. Yep.
Aircon and non-aircon rooms.
Aircon and non-aircon rooms.
It's like another $100 or something.
Yeah.
The room, sorry, what she's saying is the rooms can be air conditioned or non-air conditioned. A little bit of a price difference, but we had an air conditioned room. It was reasonably warm, but we didn't really need it.
Mm.
So
Better to have it and not need it.
yeah.
So this time we got there on Friday night to Chicago, so we stayed there a couple of nights. It was like $500 a night in a Best Western near the river. That was really nice. One of the warmest nights of the year, so the nightlife was amazing, very interesting. I never thought of Chicago as a destination, but absolutely. And then I booked in a place called Nina, about 13 minutes drive north of Oshkosh, and it was a motel next to the road, and it had 2 twin beds, and it was $1,600 for 6 nights. It's for the two of us. It was air conditioned. It was a bit average in appearance, but it was quite comfortable. And the first time I went back in 2010, we stayed at Fond du Lac down the road, 20-something minutes away. We stayed in a motel there. And then the last time I went last year, we stayed at Ripon, which is just down the road at the university. There was no air conditioning there, and that was incredibly hot. That was almost unbearable. And if anyone that knows Charlie and John from Turidan, they snored and argued at each other the whole time. One's deaf and one was snoring. And it was interesting. So I think that covers the accommodation. And I didn't say before, we drove there. We rented a car as well. So
So this is a good question. So
Yep.
if you're staying off-site and you've
Yep.
rented a car, what's the travel time like to get from where you're staying and then get into the car park and getting in and out of the car
Yeah,
park?
so for us it was a smooth run. As I said, we were 15 minutes away. It wasn't busy. The car parking's pretty good other than the air show days, or the night air show days, that gets busy. But otherwise, straight in there, no issues with parking. And there's a fee for the parking as well. It's $20 or $25 a day US, depending on where you stay. So if you want to do it on a budget, the hotel or the motel and the parking and the car is not a budget approach. Parking or university would be my tip.
Fantastic. Gordon.
Thank you. Thanks, Pete. Like Zoe, I stayed at the university, which first challenge with that is actually getting a room, because university manage their own bookings. They don't use a booking.com or anything like that. So sometime in October, they'll put something up on their website saying that the university rooms are available for booking. You then have to send them an email at about, I think it was about 2 a.m. Melbourne time is when the bookings open, and then you hear nothing for a couple of months, and sometime early in the year you'll get an email saying you're on the list and you're 150 for a room or 140 for a room, and eventually you might get the room you've booked. And I think from memory, Tony, Jack and I each applied for rooms, and I think Jack may have got a response first saying rooms had been allocated. The rooms we had were air-conditioned rooms, which were from memory 150 US a night, which was worth having the air-conditioned rooms once they were eventually allocated. Not that the air conditioning necessarily worked that well, but it was better than nothing. They are university dormitories, so there's shared bathrooms. Each floor has a common bathroom, so you trek down the hall each morning and night for a shower and to relieve yourself. They are basic, either single bed or twin bed student accommodation, but it works for the event. And as Zoe said, there's a fantastic cafeteria. Breakfast was included each day at the university, so it was a full-on all-you-can-eat breakfast, hot and cold, fruit, cooked food, everything you could imagine in vast quantities as you'd expect in the United States. The bus was $15 a day from the university to the site, and it's about a 10-minute ride. Unlike Avalon, traffic in and out of the site was very, very efficient. So when you're leaving, once you get on the bus, you're basically 10 minutes and you're back to the university. There weren't any delays, hold-ups, getting in and out. So that worked very well. In terms of getting to Oshkosh, we hired a car in Chicago and drove it up and actually parked at the university for the week. And I think in total having the car for the week was about 800 US. So as Brent said, it's not the cheapest way to do it, but it is by all accounts easier than trying to do it with buses from Chicago. And you can leave a car at the university and just commute on the buses each day, which work very well. So other than the challenge of actually getting a booking and waiting for the university to do their convoluted self-managed booking process, it works quite well.
So having a car there would be a good option if you wanted to hang around later at night time to experience the experiences.
Yes, though.
If you drove yourself in occasionally.
We found that we didn't drive in, we used the bus all the time. Even Wednesday night there's a night show, Saturday night there's a night show. I think Thursday or Friday night there was a barbecue for international visitors, which had I think Australians were the biggest group of international visitors this year, and they put on drinks and a barbecue. I think it's Thursday evening, and we tended just to use the university buses because they always seem to be running.
Fantastic. Well, you sort of led in there to the next question. So, at Oshkosh, we'll come back this way again. What did you do there?
Well, over the course of being there for a week, the first objective was just to get around and get an idea of what was there, because it's an enormous site. There's 10,000 odd aircraft parked on the field. The airport is several kilometres long with just the parking area of aircraft. In fact, there is a separate seaplane base 10 minutes drive from Whitman Field, and when you go down there on the bus they run between the two, that's when you actually get a sense of just how big Oshkosh is, because once you get outside the gates of Oshkosh there are still thousands of aircraft parked outside the airshow area, which run for kilometres before you actually leave the airshow site. So fortunately there is a shuttle bus or multiple shuttle buses that run within the airshow site, so you can go to a bus stop, get on, go for a kilometre down the airfield, get off and look at other things. So it makes it easy to get around the site, but there's an enormous number of things to see. Thousands of parked aircraft, everything is open for access. There are basically no fences at Oshkosh, not even along the runway. So if you want to go and look at the Cessna 180s or whatever your specialty is, you'll see dozens, if not hundreds of them. You can immerse yourself with the owners, they'll be camping under wing. You spend a lot of time just going up and down the rows of parked aircraft, talking to aircraft owners. In the centre of the site is all the heavy stuff. Again, it's essentially open access with the exception of the F-35 and the F-22. You can go up, walk under, sit under, talk to the pilots, get very, very close. The warbirds are the same. I spent an afternoon sitting under a B-25 for some shade. They're all open, all easy to get to. At the same time, there are hundreds of seminars running. Oshkosh has 15 or so seminar venues in an area towards the north of the site, And over the course of the week, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of seminars on everything from flying to aircraft maintenance to aircraft building, workshops on fabric work, riveting, woodwork, any number of skills required for aircraft building, welding, seminars for all of those as well. So you could spend your entire week just going to seminars. So as a first-time visitor, I basically tried to see as much of it as possible to get an idea of what was available, and at some year in the future, delve into it a bit deeper.
Fantastic.
So I went for a different reason. I took my 12-year-old with me. He wanted to make YouTube videos of cars. So we went to Chicago, we went to all the car places, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, all that business. So he made a YouTube video. I can play that later. I went there for business purposes, so my biggest customer for my webcams. For those that don't know, I do the webcams on Ausrunways and Avplan and Windy, the ones that you see on the building here. There's a network of 1,300 cameras on 320 airports in APAC, and I'm looking to expand that a little bit more into the US. So my cameras will hopefully soon be appearing in 4Flight, which is the American brand of Ausrunways, and if for those that know, 4Flight purchased Ausrunways, so hence why my shirt's got that all over there. So I went there for some business meetings, plus I was also talking to some other EFB providers while I was over there to try and work out how I'm going to get my cameras in there. So it was mainly for business. Obviously I looked at the aircraft and did everything I'd normally do, went to a few forums. I went to the YouTuber meet, which was interesting, all the Trent Palmers and all those sorts of people there. You went and watched them talk about their lives and YouTubing, and yeah, that's pretty much it. There is a new EFB coming to Australia that's American as well. I got to chat to them, so that was interesting because they'll come on board as well, hopefully.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there you go.
Thank you. It was nice to have a different perspective of why you went there other than just opening.
Yep.
First time for me, so I'd have to say...
I'll interrupt for 1 second. What were your expectations?
I tried not to have too many, apart from just taking some advice before I left. I'd have to say one of the greatest kind of, or the most helpful thing that I found was the app. So the app's got all of the information that you could want about Oshkosh, all the seminars. It's got summaries of the seminars, what time they're on, and you can go through the app and basically program out your whole week based on the seminars that you're interested in. And yeah, so I did that probably, I didn't actually start looking at that until about a week before I left. But yeah, I just tried to get an idea, like literally hundreds and hundreds of talks. So it took me hours to go through even just one day at Oshkosh in terms of looking at the seminars that were on and which ones that I wanted to see. And then I just came up with a bit of a short list. And then I went through the week just basically kind of looking at the list that I'd made, seeing what I felt like at the time. I went really hard for the first 2 days that we were there, very jet lagged, crashed big time Tuesday. I think, I had to go back to the uni dorm and sleep for about 4 hours, and I felt really average until probably Wednesday afternoon, and picked back up again. So yeah, kind of pacing yourself, but yeah, trying to do some prep before you go and use the app, because I found that really helpful. Yeah.
Fantastic, excellent, Graham.
I've been going, I guess, several years, but from 2018, as I said, I started volunteering. So each year, I guess it's kind of it's a bit like Darren. There's a social component to why I go, catching up with other volunteers and networks that the people that I've met. But I guess, like everybody, think about the first time I went, it was overwhelming, like Zoe said, and I can only double down on what she said in terms of doing your planning. You really need to. You can wander the show and you'll spend all week. It's a fantastic show and you won't see it all. But if you do a little bit of planning, figure out what you would like to do when you get there, the app, there's plenty of stuff ahead. And that will really help you make the most of the show. It's work out all of the things available, what you want to see, because there's no time to do it. There's not enough time to do them all. Like Gordon said, you'll never see all of the seminars. It's just impossible. So a little bit of focus and planning it out ahead of time is really, really valuable.
Fantastic. Last one.
I'm fortunate I'm in one of the few positions in Australia where I get to work in recreational aviation as a full-time job. So I've been able to, from my days as the tech manager with the YTYA, now as assistant head of airworthiness for RAOs, build relationships. So I use the EAA time to catch up with some people. So the last 4 years in a row now, we've met with Jack Pelton, who's the big whiner over there for the EAA, the main man. Jack was the CEO for Cessna Textron. So this year, our board chairman Mick Monk and our CEO Max both come over, and we did an introductory meet and greet with the EAA power brokers. So we've got some stuff going on in the background there that we've been working together with. But for me, I take a couple of weeks annual leave, and for me, it's not so much about the air show. Now, it just happens to be a location that I go to catch up with a group of mates. But something that I did differently this year. In years gone by, I flew a Huey helicopter into EAA. I've flown the Huey Cobra. This year I got to fly the similar aircraft to the Red Bull aerobatic helicopter from Green Bay. A friend flew that up from Florida and then let me fly that into Oshkosh. And then I also flew in the B-29 dock. So that was quite an experience. I've been in the B-17, I've done the B-25. And then just experiences that only aviation people will understand. So when you're thundering down the runway out of Appleton in a B-29, even though that one had quite a passive war history, was used for radio operations, whatever else, to know that sort of aircraft was the aircraft that ended the war in the Pacific with what it did. It gives you an appreciation of those people, and for me what still stands out is, I'm not a tiny fella, but I crawled into the back of the B-29 while we were flying into the tail gunner's position, and it was the only position in the back in that aircraft that was in a non-pressurised part of the aeroplane. The B-29 was the first pressurised aircraft in the world back then, but the tail gunner would get into we entered in the same area that he did. He would start it was like a little two-stroke motor there, which was a generating unit for the power for the aircraft, and then he would hop into the back and he would shut the door, and that's where he was for the takeoff, the duration of the bombing runs, and then they flew all the way back, and they had a life expectancy of 2 to 3 weeks. And there's a whole lot of nothing in there around you. I mean, the views are spectacular, but you could only imagine an 18-year-old sitting in there having aircraft trying to kill you. It was a humbling experience. So, yeah.
Excellent. That's a great experience to share. Thank you. So probably I think you've had the most trips to Oshkosh. What have you noticed the biggest changes have been over the last 18 years? Was it 18, I think you said?
The thing
or
with
any, if any.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Oshkosh is it doesn't seem to change. It just seems to get busier. Unlike here, where there's fences up, and anyone that's been to the SAAA fly-ins, you're kept back from aircraft, and it's so regulated. Over there, Paul Poberenzi, who was the founder of the EAA, had a rule that if you walked past and saw a piece of rubbish on the ground, you picked it up. And it's amazing how many people over there will just walk along and see something and walk over and pick it up. And you find you become part of that culture. And the place is absolutely immaculate. You can, being fortunate enough to camp there for that week, you're allowed back onto the grounds any time. So you go back onto the grounds any afternoon or any evening. So you might see an aircraft there, and there might be 5 people, might be 5,000, might be 50,000 people on the ground. You then get total uninhibited access to that aircraft. And I mean, you can go up to the supporting forces of there was a U2 there this year, Dragon Lady, and you want to have a look, under the fence, and they would take you up. Here's a U2 spy plane that you're allowed to physically, pour all over. their willingness to support aviation is like nothing I've ever come across. Because it's Oshkosh, and you talk to anyone at Border Force in either Los Angeles, Chicago, Montreal, you go, where are you going? And you go, oh, I'm going to Oshkosh. And they go, where? You know, it's quite unique in the way that, you know, you get so excited by that. But generally, it doesn't change. I mean, what I have seen, unfortunately, is the commercialisation. There's 4 big halls inside the ground that have all the vendors. So if you want to buy your GPS or your ethos or an engine or a propeller, or you want to go and join the National Gay Pilots Association, all the groups are there. It doesn't matter who they are, everyone has a spot in these buildings. But the problem with it is, you know, you talk to the vendors, and the vendors are saying that unfortunately due to commercial costs, they won't be back next year. And there's been a hell of a lot of really good suppliers that just can't simply afford to pay for that booth and then have the staff there and the accommodation and the travel. So unfortunately you see there's a lot of Chinesium stuff there, a lot of junk stuff. You know, people selling, you know, roller doors and umbrellas and totally unrelated stuff. So
Massage chairs.
What?
Massage chairs.
Massage chairs. There's a hell of a lot of massage chair companies in there. Great if you've been walking like you do. And, you know, you know, to put it into perspective, I've got 2 new knees, but this year I averaged about 25,000 steps a day. And I've been going for 22 years. So you get there and it's electric, and as I said, you might do nothing during the day, but then at the night time, yeah. So it's look, if you haven't been, absolutely go. You won't regret it.
All right. So last question now, going back this way again. Quick answers, if you can. If not, doesn't matter. What would you do differently this time? So what would you do differently if you went back again and avoid, obviously, the hangars where the cheap junk is? What else would you do?
Oh, look, because I know it's there, you sort of flow through pretty quickly. And as I said, for me, it's not about Oshkosh anymore. It's a location where I meet family and friends. This year, there's a little artist, no offence, Barry, who's I love his work. His name's Romain Hagoult, and Romain is a guy who did the Larry girl on my fuel tank. Gave me permission to use his artwork for that. And we've been conversing, and I've bought some of his prints from France and everything else. Well, he was there this year, so the highlight for me was I got to meet him and have a chat for a couple of hours and whatever else. So it's a melting pot of like-minded people from all around the world, and it's just, there is nothing, really aren't words that can describe it to you in there.
Fantastic. Graham, what would you do differently, if anything at all?
I probably wouldn't change anything. I've got 2 fantastic jobs at Oshkosh. I drive handicap carts for about 20 hours, and I fill all the aerobatic aircraft with smoke oil for another 20 hours. And a lot of friends and stuff with that. So for me, there's no change. It's just a matter of how quick you get back there. But I think things do change over the years. For a one-time visit, it's hard to say which is the best way to do things, I think, for trying to tell anyone how to get there, I think. But it's like Darren said, it's such a huge event, and there are so many different things to see. It's always the same, except it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But no, there's nothing I'd change. It's just an awesome event. I think there's things that happen there that a lot of first-timers don't know about, or I guess everyone goes to the air show, but at night there's a night short field landing competition, which is absolutely awesome. I find that part of the show as good as some of the displays during the formal display.
Drones.
And the drones, it's just on and on. So nothing to change, but still lots to see and fantastic things to look forward to every year.
Zoe?
Not go skiing the week before and do your knee. I would suggest not doing that. Probably I'd try and get a little bit fitter again before I actually left, because there was a lot of walking. I would get there earlier, so try and get over some jet lag before the show starts. And yeah, I was very lucky. I basically just tagged along with Dad and Jack and Gordon. So yeah, next time I feel like I'll be a bit more prepared. But yeah, try and do some planning and yeah.
Fantastic. Brent?
Well, same here. We'd probably pad it out a little bit more, spend a couple of days at the end, because I didn't have a lot of leave. It's a long way to go, 28 hours for 9 days each way, basically, is what it took. So we did get some time. We went to a shooting range. I took my boy there. I'd never done that before. That was good. We spent the 2 nights in Chicago, but I'd probably just pad it out a little bit. I know some of the guys over here we're talking to went to Miami and caught a bus to wherever and trained, so something along those lines. And in terms of Oshkosh, I didn't get much of a chance because I had my boy with me. He doesn't like when I gas bag all the time, but everyone there has a story. You'll be chatting to some guy in his 80s and he'll have 2,000 carrier landings back in the military and this sort of stuff. Just everyone has a story, and it's way more than you expect. Someone will say, oh, I've got 8 aircraft I run a museum out of California somewhere in some little place I'd never heard of. So the more you talk to people, the more you find out. Darren's nodding his head because he knows what it's like. Yeah, that's the best part of it, probably just going there for the people. So.
Excellent. And Gordon?
Wouldn't really change anything. The benefit of a second visit is knowing an idea of what's there and being able to plan more. One of the big things, first time you get there, overwhelmed by just how much is there. And as Darren said, it's not really about the air show. In fact, there's a lot more to see on the ground than there is in the air. The air show runs about 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 6-ish. But there is just so much to see and do on the ground, and having an idea for a second visit of what's there and what the priorities are, seminars, etc. to go to. I think it'd be a bit more planning. One thing I found really useful for a first visit was going with people who had already been and knew how it works. And it's actually really simple. The logistics of it works very, very well, but the experience of going with people who had done it before added a lot of value. So if you're a first timer, I highly recommend going with someone who has been before. As I indicated when I landed in Dallas, there were 3 other members of PAC on the same aeroplane, which we hadn't planned, and that's the way it worked out, but it highlights there are a lot of people from Tyabb go to Oshkosh. So if you're thinking of going for the first time, touch base with someone who's been and see if they're going again, because it just adds so much to the experience, having someone who knows what they're doing and what some of the tricks are.
And that actually sums up why I asked to do this tonight. For that reason, was it to introduce people.
That ends it if there's no more questions. Thank you very much for your involvement tonight. Thanks, guys. I'm sure if anyone wants to say thank you and buy these guys a beer or a red or a glass of champagne, they would love it. Thank you very much.